We're going to start off with John Dale um, with the first
Hey
question.
guys, how we doing today? All right, thanks for doing this. By the way, I wanted to say hello to everybody. And my only question is, what is it going to take to play football in the spring? I know you guys have a lot to think about between now and then, but what will it take? Will there need to be a vaccine before you think we play football in the spring? And I'm sure you've had those discussions.
Well, Dell, this is Clyde Doughty, and then Jackie can jump in. Corona is making the decisions for all of this right now. And so we're following the lead of the science and the data. And we have plans in place that for a schedule for the spring for football, should we be able to play. And if that is, if that comes to fruition, we will be able to play at least our conference games, or we're looking to play our conference games in the spring. And we are making plans to do so if things get better medically.
And John, I would add that we've been having conversations with Dr. Hayline at the NCAA and also the NCAA and other leagues about this as well. I do think there may be some guidelines that come out that we would be required or possibly have to follow in order to proceed with our seasons. We'll know more of that in the next week or so. I think you'll see either more decisions, whether people are going to continue to play or not to play, given what those guidelines are. But hopefully we'll have more information to understand how that will impact our decisions moving forward for winter and spring.
Thank you guys, and you guys, everybody, stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. You do the same.
Thanks, John. We're going to move to Mark Gray next.
Hi, everybody. Great to see you. I hope you can hear me. Are we good?
Yes.
Okay. My question is for, I guess, Clyde as the athletic director, and maybe for you, Jackie, from a commissioner standpoint. And I'm just asking for a broad perspective here on, given the financial impact that football has on every other program, what percentage or what kind of financial strain does that put on operating costs and things of that nature by not being able to have the games, particularly in fulfilling those home dates?
Well, I don't think it's putting a strain, Mark, so to speak, on the athletic department. It's given us time to reallocate our funds, our budgetary funds. As you know, the virus, COVID-19, impacted all of our revenues from an institutional perspective at all our institutions. So we're trying to manage those funds as efficiently and as effectively as possible. Thus, we're looking at all the different options, and we're going to use every possible funding source to support all of our sports program, not only football. Yes, we will lose some revenue from tickets and other items, but for the most part, we're going to look at being very efficient with the funds we do have so we can provide the experience that the commissioner said to our base out there who enjoy CIAA football and all our other sports. And let's not forget the other sports also too. Cross country and volleyball are two very important to us as well as football. But yes, we will do the best we can to maximize and be efficient with all funds that are under our purview as athletic directors.
Yeah, and Mark, to add to that, on a conference standpoint, we depend on our sponsorships in our host cities. Salem is our location, and Carrie's on here now, but Salem is one of our locations where we have an agreement to have our championship there. But we're lucky and blessed to have the partners that we have and understand and how we work together to get through this and what it could look like on the other side, even, going next year or whatever decisions that we make as a partner. I think that's the unique piece about CIAA. It's just not transactional, that we have relationships where we can talk through this thing to figure out how it could work for all of us. And that's even with our sponsors. We've been very open and candid with our sponsors, as they have with us too. Everyone is having challenges in their organizations, from layoffs to funding. And so how we work together and provide the deliverables to them differently, those are things that we're talking through now. And so I think everyone across the world knows, in college athletics particularly, when I believe it's always been about the educational experience, and now it's become this grand business model. that has us in panic about how we're going to have ticket sales, how we're going to have sponsorship deals, and all those other things. I think this is a great reset for everyone. But for CIAA, I think we have always been very realistic about the things that we have and what's most important to us. So not to panic about what we don't have, but how we're going to take advantage of what we do have and reallocate our resources to still give those experiences and provide those deliverables for our partners that we work with.
And I would also like to add, Commissioner, that when you talk about deliverables and reallocating of funding, we're going to be looking into our CIAA network to a lot greater extent to work with sponsors and work with institutions to provide another opportunity. Dr. Abdullah once said, out of pain comes gain, and this is going to be a moment for an opportunity to move forward with a lot of things. We went into the CIAA network last year. It was very successful, and we can build upon that moving forward, especially during this COVID-19 period.
So to follow up on that, would that be like virtual programming and stuff? Or when you say network, are you talking about collective body of schools, athletic directors, and the like, just for clarity purposes?
It's an opportunity for a lot of things, virtual experiences, programming, interviews, a whole host of things, Mark, that we could continue to do and build upon to enhance the CIAA brand and to promote each of our institutions.
So I just had, and this is Catherine Capital, Baltimore Sun Media Group. I just had kind of a more Bowie State specific question. So apologies to everyone here not related to Bowie State. How much, and just piggybacking off the last question, how much revenue specifically does Bowie State football, which of course had such an incredible season last year, bring in terms of funding other programs at the school?
Well, football doesn't fund any other programs at the school. Our revenue is generated through our student fees across the board. We bring in a little bit of revenue with our ticket sales, but it's nowhere close to supporting what you would believe or what you would think about the big time schools that support the entire athletic department. We're not in that boat with them. We're not rowing with them down that river. So our revenue helps in a sense. It's not substantial, but it is something that we use to support our programs across the board.
Gotcha. And just a quick follow-up, if it's okay. What would you tell, of course, I know several athletes who are headed to Bowie State this fall for various sports. What would you tell those athletes who are probably feeling a little insecurity about their futures right now?
Well, we have worked diligently with our student athletes on a daily basis since this all started back in March when we had to leave campus and do remote education. And the number one factor to go to school is education, and that's our number one priority is academic excellence. So our coaches, staffs have been working with all of our returning student athletes, our incoming student athletes to tell them that this too shall pass, and we all will get through this together. Sports is not the end all be all to life, and we have to realize that as we move forward in life. Just like an ineligible athlete comes to me and says, "Oh, what am I going to do this year? I can't play." Well, that year goes by very quickly and they're back out there participating. And we will be back out there participating. And it's just unfortunate this has happened across the globe. It's an international situation and we're all impacted by it. So we stay with those student athletes who want to come on campus, who want to do certain things, and try to explain to them and provide them with all the updated information that we possibly can to keep them connected.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, next up, we're going to go with Wayne Epps.
And with Wayne Epps with the Richmond Times-Dispatch, I was wondering how long were you kind of considering this decision? What were you hearing from member schools during the process, and what kind of pushed you to that final decision to say, hey, we need to go ahead and decide to suspend fall sports?
Wayne, I'll jump in there first, and I know the commissioner will follow up, but 2 months ago, this wasn't even on the table. We were very optimistic that we were going to be able to have fall sports and move forward with that. But like I said earlier in my opening, Corona is making the decisions for us. And as the things start to spike and you see the red states and things are starting to not get better, we felt that in the best interest of safety which is non-negotiable across the board, to make this decision. We had options on the table, what these things would look like. This was one of the options as we went through it. Our first option was to play the season starting in August like we always do. And then we went down the list from there. And then we hit this point, this plateau right now, where we said to everybody across the board, how are we going to be able to do this? And the decision was made and based upon safety first, and getting the revenues to protect people from a safety perspective.
Yeah.
And if I could ask as well, it was mentioned earlier that you guys kind of have a schedule in place for what spring football will look like. What would that look like? Would it be, starting a season in February or March? And also, if I could add it as well, mentioning sort of allocation of funds, like would playing football in the spring kind of affect, yearly budgets, kind of pushing that back into next year at all?
Well, with the schedule, we're looking at various different models right now. So that's will be continued to be discussed and determined. Budget-wise, I mean, if we play in the fall and we play in the spring, we're still going to be allocating the same type of funding towards the program. So that money, those funds will be there to support the program in the spring. We're just flipping things, Wayne, as you can know. We're not playing football in the fall, we're playing in the spring, but we're still going to play this year. And so that's the goal and the opportunity.
Thank you.
All right, next we're going to go with Mr. Eric Moore.
You're on mute, Eric. Still on mute.
You're on mute, Eric.
Eric, you're on mute. You're still on mute, Eric.
Is that working?
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
I'd like to take the conversation a little differently in that I noticed at the end of the press release announcing the suspension of fall sports, there was an inclusion of a statement from the SIAC. Was it anticipating some partnership activities with the SIAC, or was it just the two Division II HBCU conferences making a joint statement? Jackie?
Yeah, that's a great question, Eric. And, I commend Dr. French, that's the chair for SIAC, and Dr. Abdullah, the chair, obviously, for the CIAA. They had conversation as part of Division II and as part of colleagues as well. I think coming out of that, I think there was a belief, and Dr. Abdullah could speak up, that there was an opportunity if we were going to announce the same time that we should go out together and we should have some type of statement collectively, because our issues are the same. And the reasons why we're postponing are for the same. Now, just Eric, the Division II overall, other conferences are still talking about what to do. Whether there'll be collaborations, I don't know. But it just made sense for us to try to collaborate, at least in a joint statement, that we're standing together and we'll try to figure out how to move forward as best as we can. And Dr. Abdullah might be able to add to that.
I will. Again, I want to thank also President French, chair of the SAIC, and all of the member schools in the SAIC. They were considering a similar proposal around the same time that we were. And so it was good for us to be able to collaborate to have a joint announcement.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Next, we'll go to Norman Dotson. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's actually James Hill with Black News Channel. Norman is one of our digital people. He's really, really awesome. And so, but thank you. Just wanted to ask, as far as the out of season schedule, the game or two where you step out of conference, do you envision actually playing those games in the spring as well? Or will you come back in the spring and just play CIAA football?
Well, we're looking at from a football perspective to just play in the conference because of the impact and how many games that football has to play. And our main goal and initiative is to just play the conference games in football. Other sports, we will look at non-conference opponents if there is an availability and an opportunity to do so, because there's still some of the spring sports will be operating within their traditional seasons. So there might be an opportunity for basketball to still play some non-traditional, non-conference games, softball, volleyball. So we're going to look at it from a sport by sport basis to determine. But I do not think that football will have the opportunity to play outside of the conference. I think we'll just have enough time to get those conference games in and move forward from there.
And James, the CIAA and all of our conferences have been working closely with the NCAA on making modifications to the schedule and having some flexibility. I think most of our conferences are really seeking to make sure that we can get our conference games in. That would be the priority before we reached out to the outside, but not limit those opportunities as long as we can meet our minimum and maximum numbers as part of being in the membership. I guess that what's different now is because we are looking and considering the spring, we have to also figure out and consider what's going on in the rest of the landscape of college athletics for Division II. But I do think that based on our conversations with our conference, we're going to focus. We have 1 year just to focus on giving our student athletes an opportunity to play the game that they love. And if that's just in the conference, then that's just what it is. But there's a lot more conversation that will have to take place.
Will do. Jacqie, also, anytime there's crisis, people look at the negative part, but talk about the positive part. We can't see it right now, but going forward, the CIAA has always been a winner. Yeah,
I feel like we are, as Clyde would say, we're the most resilient conference. I mean, you guys have watched us for 108 years. Well, he wasn't that long, but you've seen all the things that we've been. I think we're experts in crisis management, actually. And being able to manage the good and the bad. I honestly believe that every decision that we make is a win. It may not be for those who may not like the decisions that we make, but I think we think out very well what opportunities exist through these challenges. And I think we always reinvent ourselves to be better and to do better, regardless of what that decision is. Again, my staff is on it. We're working with our partners. We're trying to figure out, what is the next, what do we do in the interim outside of all the planning? How do we stay visible? How do we stay relevant? How do we engage our alumni, our fans? I mean, we are a conference that is so beyond just playing the game, but that is significantly why we're here today. And so how do we continue to engage and work with our membership, our student athletes, and our sponsors to make that happen? So we're in that state. We've been talking about this over the last few months, but now it's time to really dig in since we've made a decision and figure out what the next looks like and the opportunities available to continue to move forward.
Yes, Norman, we are resilient and we are more than just sports. And this has given us an opportunity to do a whole lot of different things around diversity, inclusion, and self-development with our student athletes. And it's taken root. Our SAC has been wonderful during this whole period. They have reached out to their members on each campus and worked with them about various different things. And in life, these things happen beyond 4 years of eligibility. So in 40 years, how it's going to impact you down the road, these are the opportunities for teaching opportunities that we have right now before us, and we're taking full advantage of those.
Great, thank you, James. Next, we'll go to John Emmett.
Hi, thanks, Ben. John Emmett, WVST Petersburg. For Commissioner McWilliams, earlier this week, football coaches and ADs kind of publicly presented an idea for the spring season. Did that sort of hasten the decision-making timetable?
Absolutely not. Our conference has definitely, we are strategists, and the conversations and the information that we have shared with our membership and how they shared it, I don't think had any bearing on us having to make a decision yesterday. I mean, we were prepared to get together. Dr. Abdullah was, as our chair, has provided leadership in ensuring that we can make a decision today or yesterday. And if it was extended to next week, it wouldn't have been because of what was presented in the media over the past week. But I think the thoughtfulness and the timing was right, and had also been considered for the past week anyways. And so, again, some things get out and information is shared, and it's not that devastating to us. We just take that information and continue to move it as part of our process of making the decision that we made. And so I'm pleased. I'm glad that our coaches and our administrators and those who have made comments are engaged and understand the importance of being a part of the process. But ultimately, the board and the conference office will take all that information and make the timing for us, for the entire membership. And that's what we did.
May I follow up quickly with Dr. Abdullah? Dr. Abdullah is obviously a huge supporter of BSU athletics and a really enthusiastic fan. How tough is this kind of on a personal, emotional level?
Well, it is, and I'll talk big picture. The entire thing is very difficult as we try to navigate this new world in higher education, and how do we do the best that we can to provide quality experiences in a world now where proximity is difficult, right? And so it's difficult for sports. It's difficult for our faculty to be able to do the kinds of work that they are used to doing. I think it's difficult across the board in higher education. And so you are correct. I'm a huge fan. This is a very challenging decision in that way. But I believe it's the right decision ultimately for our student athletes, for their safety, for the safety of our coaches, safety of administrators, for the safety of our referees, for the safety of our fans. And so I'm proud that the CIAA is making this decision today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we'll go to, thank you, John. Next we'll go to AD Drew.
AD Drew, Black College Sports Network. Just wanted to figure out the logistics of possibly playing your fall sports in the spring along with the traditional spring sports, and then you've got your basketball carryover. Just trying to see logistically how that's going to work, especially for those who have traditionally been two-sport athletes. You know, cross-country people, they run cross-country in the fall and run track in the spring, and you've got indoor track that's gonna cross over. You may have some volleyball players who play softball and some things like that. So that would be question number one, and question number two would be, would there possibly be with the SIAC and the CIAA looking at playing spring football, maybe a possible championship game for those two for Division II HBCU championship? Those are my two questions.
I'll tackle number one, and Jacqie can have number two. From a dual sport participation, well, first let's look at the logistics you talk about with facilities and such. That was a major discussion amongst the athletic directors because we're going to have to manage that situation. We've already worked amongst ourselves and amongst our staffs to know that's going to be a difficult situation, but we're going to make it work because of the situation, because we want to provide that experience that the commissioner talked about for our student athletes. So it's going to be easy? No. Will we make it work? Yes, we will. As far as the two-sport athletes are concerned, we had that discussion on campus, and all our ADs have had that discussion with their members and their student athletes. It's going to be a tough decision, but let me say this. No student athlete will lose their scholarship if they decide to pick one sport over the other. They will be able to participate and play at their leisure or with their bequest of what they want to do for the season. If they decide to go play volleyball over cross country or cross country over volleyball, that's going to be their option, and we're going to work towards that goal. Commissioner.
Yeah, and I would say, we're talking about a 1 year, hopefully, right? If this COVID person would just get out the way, we're talking about 1 year of trying to make some adjustments to give opportunities to our student athletes. God willing, we won't be talking about this in the next year or so. But in the case that we are, just for this 2021 season, the opportunities, again, as we vet out what those opportunities look like in collaborations with other conferences, to include the SIAC, we have reached out this morning just to say, how proud I was that we were able to collaborate on this, and there may be some other opportunities later that we should consider, whether that's leadership development, programming, educational programming, but even through our sports and championships. Again, I think we'll focus mainly on trying to figure out what that looks like for all of our conferences, particularly SIAC and CIAA, and then figure out if there's a collaboration opportunity for a championship amongst, you know, the lines of states. That's the thing. I said we are in 5 different states. Everybody has different regulations, and everyone has to play in the sandbox fairly. Right. And so we're concerned just in our own conference on how we're going to manage PPE planning, how the safety of our student athletes. And when you go outside of your conference, if we're consistent, is there consistency with other conferences that we would continue to play with if that is required at that time? And so there's a lot to talk about still. We're in the beginning stages of that, way beginning stages. But I do think there's an opportunity for us to have those discussions to figure out how we can work together and, again, help uplift each other through this time in this 1-year period.
Thank you.
All right, we have time for one more question. Let's go to Jamie Walker.
Hello, I'm Jamie Walker, HBCU Report. Looking, and I saw a couple of reports from the SIAC about some schools expressing the want to actually play games as an independent in the fall. Have any schools in the CIAA expressed that same want?
And we're going to stick together through this, and we're going to train there was a discussion that was had about equality. So we're going to all start our practice seasons at the same time. We're all going to start our acclimation seasons at the same time. We're going to play at the same time. We are one unit, one body, the CIAA, the resilient CIAA, and there has been no discussion whatsoever about someone playing outside of that decisions that have been made.
Thank you.
That's absolutely true. So I think that's the beauty of this conference, Jamie, is that we are a family, and when one family member does something, we want to support that family member collectively. And the board is a family, and they made a decision that we would move in this COVID together and help each other manage and share ideas and expectations so that we can all thrive and the brand can continue to live the way that it does collectively. And so that's where we stand right now. And Clyde is correct. There may have been some discussions of the what if, but at the end of the day, the collaboration and the ability to stand together felt better for the conference. And so I'm just thankful. I'm thankful for Clyde's leadership and Dr. Abdullah and our board for making my job easier in how we continue to think about how we move ahead together.
Jamie, it was always to a point that if one of our member institutions couldn't participate for any reason whatsoever due to COVID, we weren't going to play. We weren't going to participate because that's how strong we felt that we had to stick together like peanut butter and move forward.
Outstanding.
You don't have to quote that, peanut butter.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.